Chapter 6, Health. We're talking about physical health. Chapter 6, Poor health hinders productivity. And the verses from 1 Corinthians 9:27, the Apostle Paul is talking, but I discipline my body and I bring it into subjection, lest when I preach to others, I myself should become disqualified. What an important verse. And I just want to tell you ahead of time that on Sunday, I just spoke for an hour and a half on this important topic. We're recording this. I'm actually recording this on Tuesday, July 15th. So that would have been Sunday, July 13th, 2005. And if you can find that message, find it July 13th, 2025. I talked about being a prisoner of appetite, and it fits in perfectly with this chapter. But again, and I'm reading from the book, I Almost Quit, Leading Through the Landmines of Ministry. I almost quit leading through the landmines of ministry. So why would I include a chapter on this topic of health? Well, because it's vitally important. Number one, a lack of discipline in this area leads to a lack of discipline in other areas. Number two, health plays an enormous and significant role in productivity, energy, and attitude, and it deeply affects our emotional health. Trust me, you'll feel so much better when you're controlling your desires rather than allowing your desires to control you. And then number three, fitness is not being discussed very often in the church, and it needs to be. Congregations, their children, and their pastors are sicker than previous generations, and very few are helping them heal. The physical affects the spiritual. Don't believe me? Just try getting just a few hours of sleep for a few nights, eat lots of junk food, loaded with caffeine and sugar, pop a Xanax before preaching, and see how you feel. No, don't do this. You get my point. If you don't make time for health, you should probably make time for illness. Did you catch what I just said? If you don't make time for your health, you should probably make time for illness. How are you going to live the rest of your life in regard to productivity, energy, mood, all those things that really matter? Something we don't talk about. It's been well stated that food is the most abused drug, while fasting remains the most forgotten cure. And exercise is the most underrated antidepressant. The stark reality is that the number one cause of most illnesses stems from a pervasive apathy, an apathy in regard to physical fitness and nutrition. You know, people either don't care about their health, or even when they do, they fail to take meaningful action, a trend that sadly includes many pastors. You are closest to operating at full capacity when you focus on both physical and spiritual health. Did you catch that? Yes, spiritual health is the priority, obviously, but your physical health affects so many other areas that it can no longer be ignored. Again, the physical will affect the spiritual. And if you think that health is too hard and expensive, wait until you get the bill for regret. Yes, you heard me correctly. If you think that health is too hard and too expensive, wait until you get the bill for regret. As we all know, our main priority needs to be on spiritual health. Our relationship with God is the only foundation on which we must build our lives. However, on top of that foundation lies some very important building materials, such as a healthy marriage, wise financial stewardship, fatherhood, fellowship, friendship, our attitude, everything, and so on. To fulfill our purpose and to be productive, we also need to focus on our physical health. Albert N. Martin wrote in his helpful book for pastors, The Man of God, that we should focus on physical and emotional health. He adds that we must engage in a regular but flexible discipline aimed at keeping your redeemed humanity in optimum health and vigor. In other words, our humanity has been redeemed, but our sin nature is still there trying to take us down, and we have to steward that, and we have to stay disciplined. We should not allow a lack of self-discipline to continually feed carnal appetites. Recall the verse that I shared in an earlier chapter in 1 Corinthians where Paul disciplined his body to avoid being disqualified from preaching. And Proverbs 5:23 warns that an undisciplined life can lead to death, and that a man without self-control is like a city broken down into and falls into pieces, and it's left without walls, left without protection. Check out Proverbs 25. The whole chapter is great. But let me say on this real quick, I know it's hard. You can look at some of my before and after pictures when I was 240, down to 195 pounds. Again, I'm 6'2", and that's definitely much better, the lower, below 200. And it just doesn't look great for our testimony. If I'm carrying around 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds, 100 extra pounds, and it's visual. It shows that we don't have this area in our life under control. And so I would encourage you to take those steps. This time next year, you can be in phenomenal health if you take those steps. It takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight, depending on how much you have to lose. And you can set up a realistic goal. Even 6 months from now, 3 months from now, you're going to start feeling amazing and maybe even be down 10, 15, 20, 25 pounds, depending on what you do. And again, it's not about weight. However, the weight can really weigh us down. So it is important. Not if, but when. We should glorify God in our whole body, not just in certain parts. Many people, from John Owen, famous Puritan, to John Wesley and countless other preachers, regretted not focusing more on their health. Preaching is a combination of everything we are and what we do, both positively and negatively. God gave us an incredible temple that we are to honor, and we honor Him with it by taking care of it. So a healthy lifestyle actually assists your calling. Think of it that way. It's not about, I can't eat this or I can't eat that or exercise, blah, blah, blah. It actually will assist you in being a better leader, a better pastor, a better husband, a better father, a better friend. And so, this area is huge. I cannot stress that enough. I've seen many people who abuse this area, and just it really ruins not only their health but just their vigor, their mood, their energy. It's such a big thing that I think we need to really wake up and take control in this area again. Again, not about perfection, but about direction. I've always heard John MacArthur say that, and sadly, we just got the news yesterday as I'm recording this of his passing. And so, anyway, I've always thought about that quote from him that I heard 20 some years ago now. But for some of you, you may be young, enjoying your double espresso latte with a donut before you head to lunch later at a fast food restaurant. But trust me, it will catch up to you, and it has already caught up to you. You just don't know it. With young people, sometimes they don't yet see the ramifications of being overweight and type 2 diabetes, but their mood, your gut bacteria plays a huge role in serotonin and how you feel, your mood, your attitude, your sleep, everything is affected, even though you don't see it yet, maybe in regard to weight. So it's not if a poor diet will hinder us, it's when it will hinder us. It's also affecting you right now more than you realize. What we do with our health today sets the stage for what we will experience a decade later. In other words, how you treat your health at age 40 will have huge ramifications at age 50 and so on. Even if you're in your 20s, what you're doing right now is going to really set the stage for you and your kids as you get older. The last thing you want to do is deal with unhealthy kids and taking them to the doctor and watching your kids be in poor health. It really will weigh on you, and it will hinder your calling. So for this reason, this chapter that I'm reading focuses primarily on physical health, as physical disciplines can also affect spiritual health. Okay, you're getting this point, I hope. If just a 5-day junk food binge can negatively affect the brain and contribute to the development of obesity and many other related health issues, can you imagine a lifestyle focused on it? Out of context. To begin our journey, we need to stop using 1 Timothy 4:8 out of context. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this from convicted pastors. It says bodily exercise profits a little, but godliness is profitable for all things. So in saying this, Paul was not suggesting that our health does not matter. Actually, he talks about all things are lawful, but all things are not profitable if I'm brought in bondage under them. Flee from the lust of the flesh, crucify them, make no provision for them. There's so many scriptures about disciplining our body. And so he wasn't saying that health doesn't matter. Granted, they lived in a much different time back then. All they had was God-given food, really. And their issue was moderation, gluttony, not eating in moderation, just eating too much. Hence the Daniel healthy eating program that we read about in the book of Daniel and other areas. Their problem was gluttony, which was often tied to abundance, which was often tied to excess, which was also tied to sexual sin and drunkenness. It's all connected, because when you give into that appetite, it's going to pull you down in all other areas as well. So Paul was, I believe, emphasizing spiritual growth is the priority, but not at the expense of physical fitness. That should be high up on our list as well. Stewarding our health is foundational, but few books written for pastors address it. Just because many authors and pastors don't talk about this topic doesn't mean we shouldn't discuss it, especially when our physical health plays a significant role in our spiritual productivity. I think I've said that 4 or 5 times now, so hoping you're getting it. And think about it. We don't talk about things like this that we're convicted about. How often have you heard lots of sermons on fasting? Not very often. How many sermons on gluttony? Not too often. And that's why I reference you to my Sunday message on June. What day again will that be? That would be June 13th, 2025. You can find it hopefully on my YouTube channel, Rumble, the message on a prisoner of appetite, and how, consuming too much will really block what the Holy Spirit wants to do in your life. I want to really encourage you to listen to that. And there's a couple other messages there that I gave on Wednesday nights in regard to fasting. So in other words, the choices we make, such as not getting enough sleep, staying addicted to caffeine, sugar, alcohol, food, etc., as well as consuming harmful foods and chemicals, definitely will affect your overall health, including your spiritual health, more so than you realize. A lack of self-discipline always hurts us spiritually. Here's what you need to remember. A lack of self-discipline always hurts us spiritually. This topic is so important that I would encourage some pastors to take a mini sabbatical to pray, fast, and reset their health. In other words, we say, I'm just too busy. I don't have time. I've got a lot of stress. And if you're a stress eater like me, it does make it challenging. So go to your elder board or let people know, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a couple weeks off and I'm just going to really fast and seek God. And it takes a good 3 or 4 days to really fight those cravings, break those addictions, go through the withdrawals, but the fruit is absolutely amazing. Competing against King Stomach. There are 3 primary reasons why we don't discuss stewarding our health and dethroning King Stomach. Number 1, spiritual health is more important than physical health, so we simply don't talk about it. We don't think it's that big of a deal. But again, this is very flawed reasoning. Everything we do in life is either enhanced or harmed based on our health. Granted, I know that there are those who, through no fault of their own, cannot do anything about their health. I'm assuming the reader, in your case, the listener, would understand that. I'm talking to those who can make changes, and that is the vast majority of us. Number 2, most pastors struggle with gluttony and use food as medication. Hello? Everyone understands the term comfort food. It's food that provides a sense of relief and comfort when we are struggling emotionally in stressful situations. Sometimes the relief we experience after eating our favorite comfort food is due to the effect that food has on our nervous system. And sometimes it's due to certain emotional connections and memories we have with specific food. It's hard to talk about what we struggle with, especially if we don't want to change. We've become comfortable and faithful subjects under the reign of King Stomach. And I believe it was Jensen Franklin who coined that phrase, King Stomach. So I want to give him credit for that. I love that term though, because it really puts things in perspective. What's another? I don't have it in front of me, but where Paul actually said, I believe that their God has become their belly. and the abundance and the gluttony and that whole lifestyle, lasciviousness, a word we don't hear very often. Number 3, most pastors are not educated in health and fitness. That's a biggie right here. If you're not, that's okay. Bring in somebody who is, or share videos or reputable sources. Get your congregation educated on how important health and fitness is. I think this will be the first generation in well over 100 or 200 years that has not outlived their parents. That's the current generation we are in. We are sicker than ever before, and we must do something. Most pastors are not educated in health and fitness, and so as a result, they don't realize how important it is, but that shouldn't stop them from encouraging a healthy lifestyle. The physical health of your congregation is incredibly important. It should be a topic of discussion along with other areas of stewardship. Think about how many times we pray for people yet fail to realize that a change in their lifestyle could lead to healing for many of them. What did an online poll reveal? While writing this chapter, I did an online poll asking how many people think that churches should avoid serving tons of coffee and donuts, the very thing that is making them sick. Because of the major health problems that affect most of our members, an astonishing 88% said that we should not aid in the deterioration of their health. We are called to help, not hurt. I mean, a few things we've done over the years. We obviously don't serve donuts, just, personal conviction, but also with fellowship or potlucks, we encourage people, hey, let's have a chili cook-off or whatever you do. Let's bring our top 10 healthiest items, or let's get a reward for the healthiest dish that you can create. And the food tastes great. It's incredible. Your people feel better. They're being educated. And it's something I believe we can do. So again, let's talk about this topic from a little bit different angle. And I'm going to pull out a few points to consider based on this poll. We teach parenting principles, but what if we are too overweight, too tired, and too sick to spend time with our kids or grandkids? You see how, okay, here's parenting principles, here's how grandparents should act or encourage their grandkids, but what about if you're too sick or overweight to really help them and enjoy life? It doesn't make sense. We teach healthy marriage principles, but what if spouses are always moody and depressed because of their poor health and their poor diet? Wouldn't that take a toll on their marriage? Yes, it would. Absolutely. We teach about stewarding our finances, but shouldn't we also encourage good health so we can enjoy financial freedom instead of spending the last decade of our life in an assisted living home? Failing to take care of our health doesn't sound like good stewardship to me. Fueling what we should be fighting. Fueling what we should be fighting. So this is important because it's a wake-up call to what we are actually allowing into our bodies and to our minds. I won't shock and alarm you with the number of obese children in America, but we are experiencing a national health crisis, and our silence as leaders speaks volumes. Most of what we in our congregations are struggling with in regard to anxiety, depression, health issues, and so on are often caused by poor food choices that lead to nutrient deficiencies and toxic overload. Did you catch that? Experts are finding that nutrient deficiencies can cause anxiety and stress and worry and fear. It's definitely not the only cause, but it is a major cause. In other words, if you're eating better, you're taking care of your body, you're feeling better. And there's nothing that feels better than being in control and exercising self-discipline and all of that. Fun, fellowship, getting some sun, vitamin D, all those things, they play a significant role in not only our mood, but our mental health as well, and our vitality. By all means, pray for your people who struggle with anxiety and panic attacks and mental disorders, of course. But if some of these illnesses are caused by gluttony and poor stewardship and poor eating habits, then reversing course in this area can get them back on track. Why not have a men's or women's walk on a Saturday instead of always sitting at tables, drinking too much Christian crack and consuming donuts? Why not offer teachings or studies on biblically based health from time to time? Again, don't make it the main priority. The gospel is the main priority, but we also need to educate our members on this very important topic. For example, when your members are feeling better, their church attendance is going to be better. Their midweek attendance is going to be better. This is such an important topic. Health needs to be a priority because many leaders are igniting the disease epidemic instead of helping congregants through it, fueling what we should be fighting. Granted, I'm well aware of the challenges, and our church does not do things perfectly, nor do I. But shouldn't there be an effort to help people live better? Again, moderation may be fine for some people, but most people need to make significant changes to see lasting results. This is something important I want to touch base on. A lot of people who struggle can't get the weight off, and myself, I've been there. I kind of hide behind the reasoning of, well, everything in moderation. I can have a donut in moderation or chocolate in moderation. And technically that's true, but you try telling an alcoholic to have a drink in moderation. It's not possible. So many times abstinence is the best. You know what? I'm not going to have any sugar this month. I'm not going to have chocolate. I'm not going to have ice cream. I need to make some radical changes in my life. I'm just double checking here, make sure I got all the points. I did. So that's good. So anyway, on to the next system and the next section. The title is system. So maybe that's why I thought that. The system is clogged and contaminated. Don't worry. I won't bog you down with technical subjects like mTOR, thermoneutrality, NMMT expression, brain-derived neurotropic factor, autophagy, and so on, but I will get right to the point. By the way, all these things are so important, and fasting really helps in this area. For example, mTOR is a mammalian target of rapamycin. That and insulin-like growth factor 1 are both known to significantly lead to growing cancer cells. They're growth hormones and receptor sites, which is good when you're growing, but not good when you don't want certain things to grow. And so fasting lower those. It increases brain-derived neurotropic factor known as BDNF. And autophagy is the body self-consuming, cleaning itself, all really good stuff. And fasting is what really ignites this. But again, let me get right to the point. No doubt you've heard the term insulin resistance and are aware of the damage that it causes, primarily in regard to type 2 diabetes and many other diseases. Most diseases occur because of what's going on in the inside of our cells, within the cell membrane, the mitochondria, the DNA, the little mechanisms there that are producing a lot of our energy, the ATP, adenosine triphosphate that's created. Everything is happening within our cells. And most diseases occur because of what's going on in the cell, good and bad. And because of overconsumption, many diseases are linked to the same problem. So your cells, it's healthy, but if you start to flood them, even with good food, I've joked before, but organic, raw goat milk with some dark chocolate and organic almond butter, great. But if you're having that excess on top of other food, it's just too much for the system, and the system gets clogged, even on good things. That's why fasting and moderation is so important. When we eat carbohydrates, the body signals the pancreas to release insulin. This is normal, healthy, and good according to God's design. The insulin seeks out cells and binds to insulin receptors on the cell's surface. So you've got a cell, and on the side of it, around it, are the insulin receptor sites. And so it's looking for those cells, it binds to it and does its job. This allows the glucose then to enter through these receptor sites into the cell membrane, providing energy to the cell. So far, so good, right? Not so quick. Continual overconsumption without periodic seasons of fasting allows excess material to accumulate in the cells, leading to cellular damage. The cells then resist the signal, close the door, and become resistant to insulin. As a result, the glucose stays in the bloodstream, causing significant damage. So the cells are no longer able to allow the insulin to work properly, and that it's resistant to insulin. Okay, we got it. That's insulin resistance. So what do the doctors recommend? To be put on insulin, the fat storage hormone. And you're putting more insulin in your body to hopefully shove this stuff through, and it's just not healthy all around. You could technically type 2 diabetes that is lifestyle created give yourself 90 days, really change your lifestyle, incorporate fasting, caloric restriction and moderation, God-given food, and you can be off medication and you can be feeling a lot better. Don't believe the lie that just take a little pill and I can just continue to eat however I want. That's not biblical. Once this glucose stays in the bloodstream, as I said, it does cause damage, and it doesn't stop there. The body tries to force insulin into the cells by producing more, which works in the short term, but eventually it takes its toll. Excessive insulin affects the immune system and other parts of the body. Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes. Did you know that? Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes because they see the role that insulin and too much sugar and being overweight, and how that's playing a role in many types of Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. Sadly, many diseases are completely reversible and preventable if we would take the initiative. Nobody cares more than you. First, we must stop the cycle of treating the symptoms rather than the cause. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not suggesting that we don't need medication from time to time, but we must understand that in a very high number of cases, medication doesn't cure anything. It simply manages disease and often makes us worse off. I just talked about this Sunday in the sermon I referred earlier. Semaglutides, there's different brands, but you might know the one right now that's popular, Ozempic. Ozempic is a glucagon-like peptide 1. What it is, it's a peptide. What that is, it's certain strands of amino acids that go into the body injected, and they affect the body in different ways. Some are BP 157, 5-amino-1-MQ. This one is a glucagon-like peptide. There's other ipamorelin, tesamorelin, that those deal with more fat storage and things like that. But anyway, long story short, it slows down your gut digestion, so you're fuller quicker, you're not as hungry, you lose weight, but they're finding that some of the food can stay in the gut for 24, 30 hours. And it can lead to spasms. It can lead to, you can just research it. I would caution people if they're going to do it, maybe temporarily, but you better have an action plan, because if you lose muscle, you go back to your old habits. Now you don't have as much muscle. Your metabolic rate is slower because of that, and you're going to put the weight back on. This is a lifestyle. This is not a 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day fix. It's been estimated that nearly 75% of U.S. clinical trials in medicine are paid for by private companies that benefit. I might read that 5 more times so you get this. 75% of U.S. clinical trials that say, we did a clinical trial, we did a clinical study, this product is fine. They are paid for by private companies that benefit from the results. So you got to be really careful here. Why do we use wisdom and discernment when it comes to all other areas of society, but when it comes to our health, we blindly follow? For example, take this drug to feel better. Never mind the fact that the side effects include internal bleeding, seizures, suicidal thoughts, panic attacks, and so much more. We must be diligent and use wisdom. We need physicians, and we should thank God for them, but we also need to educate ourselves and take responsibility for our own health. As one of many examples, a local doctor that I still know wanted to send me home with 2 different types of blood pressure medication. Before leaving, I asked if he had used the large cuff on my arm. And they said, oh, no, we hadn't. We used a smaller one. And when they used the large cuff, the blood pressure was fine. So nobody's going to care more about your health than you are. There's other times we've had it where one doctor wanted to remove my my baby girl's tonsils and adenoids. Like, we got to get her down to the hospital now. She's having a hard time breathing at night. I'm like, okay, hold on. Knowing that's part of the immune system, right? How many of you know that lymphatic system? You've got the tonsils, adenoids, spleen, bone marrow, the lymph nodes. So we did get her off sugar, changed her diet, gave her some naps every day, and within 5-6 days, she's fine. She's great. She kept her adenoids and her tonsils. Again, I'm not saying there might not come a time where God will lead you to do certain things, but you've got to make sure that's the last resort, not the first. You got to look at how the body was created, and many times you can heal the body on its own. So here we go. I've got 5 tips here. They made an incredible difference in my life, from getting my weight down to a healthy level to just feeling better. But as always, consult your physician before starting any program. So my top 5 health tips. Many researchers are discovering the enormous connection between cellular health and longevity, particularly with healthy mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Here are the top 5 ways to restore health. In my opinion, there's so many things you can do, but I'm not getting into red light therapy, cold plunge, sauna, grounding. I mean, you can do those things if you want, but I just focus on just things that keep my lifestyle simple. Number 1, so important, focus on deep sleep, not just sleep, because you can take a lot of caffeine and pass out in your adrenal glands. You're fatigued. You really pass out. You do not get the deep REM sleep because that caffeine is keeping you up. You eat right before bed. Your body's spending a lot of energy on processing food. You do not get a good night's sleep. Try fasting. Try not eating all day and watch how good you sleep. Sometimes you won't sleep well because of cortisol levels and hormone levels raised, but overall, sometimes you sleep like a baby and you only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep sometimes when you're fasting. Focus on deep sleep. Deep sleep is when healing and restoration really take place. Did you know that? That's when your body really heals, muscles build, body gets restored. It's when you sleep. So how can we expect to be healthy if we miss this important area? Sadly, very few people experience deep sleep because they are addicted. Alcohol, sugar, caffeine, and food, which deeply affects REM. And I know this just the last week or two. I went to bed on a full stomach and I could tell I was tossing and turning, kind of sweating a little bit. It's like, this is not good. So I got to get back to what I know to be right. It's hard for me too, guys. I know. Some argue, but I fall right asleep. Again, these things do not put you right to sleep in a good way. That's not deep healing sleep. It's adrenal fatigue and exhaustion. You're basically, your body's so exhausted that you close your eyes and you do go to sleep, but you don't get that deep sleep. We then repeat the process of self-medicating the following day to balance out sleep deprivation. It's a never-ending cycle that we must break. If we are to experience true rest, we must break the cycle. For me, backing off of caffeine played a huge role in better health. Just try stopping and you'll see just how hard it is. Sadly, I always excuse my poor attitude with statements such as, I had a bad day. I'm under a lot of stress. I'm tired. Ironically, I was primarily the cause of my bad day stress and fatigue because I was consuming too much caffeine throughout the day, which makes us irritable and anxious. More on this next point. Number 2, severely cut back on caffeine. The majority of positive feedback that I've received over the years often centers around this topic. People can't believe how much better they feel when they focus on health and minimize stimulants. Interjection right here. Caffeine is a drug. It's a legal drug, and it's a central nervous stimulant. So basically, we're taking a drug and it stimulates us. And that's why we get agitated and irritable and aggressive. Most people do. I know there's some of you that don't. Praise God for you. But most people, they do. And I believe you do get a lot more irritated and angry than you think, but you just don't make the connection yet to the caffeine. And because caffeine runs along the same biochemical pathways in the brain as cocaine, opium, and amphetamines, yes, you heard that right, quitting can be a nightmare. I know that many won't want to hear this, but I have a responsibility to speak the truth in love and to try to help you. If it doesn't apply to you, then great, move on. But I know that this will apply to the lives of many people. Teenagers and young adults also desperately need to know this information. So many of them are spun out on caffeine all day, and it really affects their health, it really affects their health mentally and physically, and I think spiritually. So again, my suggestion is to back off gradually, day by day, until your intake is very minimal, and use organic green tea. Like caffeine, it has L-theanine that also helps you feel relaxed. Use that whenever possible. And maybe use the caffeine later in the day for things like when you need it, not relying on it every day. For example, I've got to finish this project or this podcast, and then maybe have some green tea, but then, don't need it again for a week. And that's the key is to make sure your body doesn't get addicted to it. You'll be shocked at the results. Granted, the first week may be torture, but it will be worth it. Psychologists now recognize caffeine-related disorders such as caffeine intoxication, caffeine-induced anxiety disorder, and caffeine-induced sleep disorder. These can begin with even minimal dosages, but if you get it up to 500 milligrams of caffeine, the amount found in approximately 24 ounces of strong coffee, it dramatically increases these symptoms. All this can lead to angry outbursts, panic attacks, severe depression, and extreme irritability. And over the years, I've prayed with thousands of people about the anger, panic attacks, depression, extreme irritability. And I would say 9 times out of 10, without exaggerating, 9 times out of 10, they are heavy caffeine drinkers. And once they take a few weeks to minimize that, they feel so much better in most cases. So it does beg the question, how many pastors are suffering mentally and physically simply because of poor health? How many members in our church are suffering mentally and physically because of the choices they're making in this area? They continue the addiction rather than removing the cause of the problem. Again, not in all cases, but in most cases, depression, anxiety, irritability, and so on could be severely curtailed if health, spiritual and physical, was a priority. So again, cutting back on caffeine really helped me overall. I think that's one reason I wanted to share this with you. It also helps, to get up earlier. I think that's, very important as well. I know there's some night owls out there, but getting to bed early, it's fairly early, and getting up early is really, I think, a much better plan if possible. Number 3, consume life-giving food. Consume life-giving food in moderation. Dead processed food, pretty much everything we're eating from a factory, does little to sustain life. Think about food this way. This apple, this pectin, the fiber, the phytochemicals, the nutrients, the what they call, macros and micros, the micros, the enzymes and the potassium and all the different things it has. This apple gives life to me. Okay. So if your kids are having a bag of fishy crackers, no life, dead food. You're having, a piece of cracker, some chips, dead, no food, no life. And that those things do not give life to the body. Vitamins, minerals, again, all these things have to be deposited into the body through God-given food to renew and restore and replenish our health. The best diet is actually very simple. Okay. Get off the watching carnivores say this. Yeah, the reason a lot of carnivores get good results is they get off processed food and they eat God-given food. The reason whole plant-based food people feel a lot better is because they get off of meat and dairy for a season and they feel much better. They get off of processed food. There's different ways of doing it, whatever you feel good about. However, biblically speaking, that's why I can't jump on either side. The best diet is actually very simple from the Bible. Choose God-given food in moderation rather than man-made processed refined foods. God talks about the curds of the land. I will bless you with the curds of the land from the sheep and the goat. You've got goat milk. You've got honey. Honey's incredible. They actually ate red meat as a sign of celebration. No doubt lamb, no doubt fish, cheese, I'm sure. And then there's tons of vegetables. We are created. God said, I give you all the greens of the field, the fruits and the seed bearing and of course nuts. All these things are food to you. Ideally, I think that we were created to eat just vegetables. That's how we were initially created. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But then about 1,500 years later, after the flood, Noah's going out there, maybe because things were sparse. I don't really know. But God said, now you have permission. Just as I gave you the greens of the field, I now give you the animals for meat. And then he gave some guidelines on that. So I don't think that was God's first choice. Also, when he gave manna from heaven, it's interesting. The manna from heaven was not meat-based or dairy. It was plant-based, depending on the words that you use, and you look up what it consisted of, the wafer that tasted like honey and different things. But anyway, that's a side note. So again, back to God-given food. But if you're like me, instead of applying some hard work and discipline, you'd rather take a pill, powder, or supplement. Another word on supplements, be careful. Don't get carried away. A certain protein powder, collagen, this supplement, they don't work wonders. They supplement. They supplement a diet and a lifestyle. And I've spent way too much money on supplements. So we have to be really cautious in this area as well. I've tried a lot of supplements, everything from creatine and amino acids to NAD and NAC, and from alpha lipoic acid to natural testosterone boosters. And although they all have their benefits, nothing, and I mean nothing, works as well as caloric moderation from time to time, combined with seasons of fasting, along with consuming life-giving food, getting sufficient sleep, and minimizing stress and eliminating snacking. That snacking keeps that insulin level high throughout the whole day. We can't take more medication or supplements and hope our cells repair themselves. It doesn't work that way. Both food and fasting play a huge role in cellular repair. Additionally, researchers are finding that the new craze of fat loss medications, again, thinking Ozempic, can cost the body a significant amount of muscle mass. If you're interested more, Google a doctor by the name of Ben Bickman. He breaks it down very nicely. In a very high percentage of people, they have to stop taking the drug. They gain the weight back. It's just not the best option for most people. But if you decide to step out into the diet medication minefield, or hormone replacement therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, things like that, pray and ask God for direction, and also educate yourself. For example, sometimes I tell people, if you want to get on, they call it TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. They'll give you something like testosterone cypionate, where you could take 100 milligrams, break it up throughout the week, maybe for a month or two. Try to get, work out and try to jumpstart something, but eventually it will stop your own production of testosterone, and then you're on it for life. And so, there are natural things that can really work for increasing natural, I don't even want to pronounce it, Tingoda something. But it works well. It's from a plant, and those you have to cycle as well, though, too, because your body gets used to it. But there are natural ways you can do this. Most men can naturally increase their testosterone by losing weight, involving exercise, balanced diet, stop drinking alcohol. That will kill testosterone. Poor sleep will kill testosterone. There are some things you can do. Don't run to TRT. It in and of itself is not the answer. Number 4, feast on fasting. Fasting doesn't kill us. Overconsumption does. And this is a good reminder to let you know this book is also available. Feasting and Fasting. Feasting and Fasting. What works, what doesn't, and why. Free downloads at the church website, westsidechristianfellowship.org. Same with my pastor's book I'm reading. Free downloads at westsidechristianfellowship.org. Also, help, I'm addicted. This one will really help for those who are addicted. You can download all my books right now for free at Westside Christian Fellowship. But back real quick to this 4th point, feast on fasting. Fasting doesn't kill us, overconsumption does. And I want to direct you again to these other books that will really help you in all the fasting questions: how long to fast, what types of fast, can I work out when I fast, what can I drink when I fast. All the different fasting questions are answered at westsidechristianfellowship.org under free ebooks, and you can begin reading right now. But you have to incorporate fasting into your life, maybe weekly, definitely monthly. Some people do, OMAD, 1 meal a day, intermittent fasting, different things. For me, the best thing is to kind of shake it up a little bit and not get so structured on one thing. Also, not eating after 4 or 5, just go to bed kind of an empty stomach really helps, although it is easier said than done. Then number 5, activate more activity. Activate more activity. Our bodies were not designed to sit for long periods of time. In 2006, Harvard Medical School put out the following statement: exercise helps prevent osteoporosis. I'm always had a tough time saying that word, but it's where our bones, right, just become more frail as we get older. And exercise will help not only to prevent that, but also help to build muscle. It also helps by improving other risk factors such as high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, stress. Exercise is so important. You feel so much better, just the endorphins and things that are released. Inactivity often leads to weight gain. And did you know that every pound of fat requires a few extra miles of blood vessels to bring the blood to it? That means more work for your body, especially the heart. Lose the excess via activity, fasting, moderation, and usher in better health. Ironically, the 5 points above are the best way to also ward off chronic stress, along with strengthening your walk with the Lord, casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. Today's choice, tomorrow's reward. Today's choice, tomorrow's reward. There's been a video circulating on social media for the last few years asking, what will the last 10 years of your life look like? One side of the video shows an elderly man smiling and walking at a good pace, while the other side shows a man using a walker, obviously in distress. This is followed by another scene of an elderly man playing with his grandkids and lifting them up, compared to an elderly man being bedridden for the next 10 years. Both of these people are the same age. So it's vital that we choose the pain of discipline over the pain of regret. Do not focus on perfection, focus on direction. Begin by taking steps in the right direction, and when you fall, get back up and keep fighting. Health is a lifestyle. It's not necessarily a destination, and it's not about being perfect in all of our choices. It's a lifestyle. It's a place that we're trying to reach. It's a path we're walking on so we can stay active, mobile, have good energy, vitality, a good mood, and we can actually do more for the kingdom of God and lead our congregations even more efficiently when we steward our health correctly. It must be a priority.